I will call this Teaching and Learning Committee meeting to order on Monday, September 16th at 5:41. Roll call. Tracy Pollock.
Here.
Brian Medved is absent excused. We have the privilege of Russ Ewert joining us tonight.
Here.
And me, I am here. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I will hear a motion.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Tracy, a second by Ewert. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the August 5th, 2024 committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
I will second, as I attended and observed the meeting myself.
All right, so I have a motion by Tracy and a second by Russ. All those in favor? Or any
Aye.
discussion? I got you that time. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, that motion carries. Item 5, we have reports and updates. So we have a pupil services in-service update. Katie Cole is with us tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Move that closer. I just wanted to provide an update on the in-service that we provided for our special education staff and administrators in August. Our school psychologist had worked really hard last year on creating an IEP checklist tool and then a presentation to go with that. So that's what the focus was for our in-service. The psychologist, along with Crystal Callan, our special education coordinator, and myself were the ones to present to the staff. And the purpose was really for us to create some consistency around IEP development, making sure that our IEPs are compliant. So we held 4 trainings. One was for the middle school, one for the high school, and then we had 2 elementary sessions where we had K2 and then 3-5, so we could work around their training for wonders. And it was nice, the smaller groups provided the opportunity to have some really good discussions, but also to ask questions as we were going through the different parts of the checklist. And also provided an opportunity for us to create a parking lot of additional questions and things that came up that could be potential future trainings for staff as well. We did give a survey out afterwards, and we had a lot of positive feedback that it was a good well-spent time, and that they appreciated it, and it was nice to be able to talk about things and ask questions. So we're going to follow up after the first quarter. We asked that they use this checklist during IEP creation and then during the meetings. So we're going to follow up to get some feedback on how that tool's worked and if we need to make any kind of tweaks or changes.
I would add I was able to sit in on 2 of the sessions, or actually 3, one of the elementary sessions, middle school and high school. And as an observer, it was great to hear the dialogue and communication from Katie and her department, along with our pupil service staff across the buildings, of the validation of good work that's going on, as well as what are the things that we can improve on, and having that consistency of language and training. So it was great to see that as a new director leading her department.
Thank you, Katie. Do you have any questions?
I just, sitting on the board, I've heard feedback from some of that professional development that took place at the beginning of the year. I think it's being really well received. I think some of that leadership is very much appreciated within the staff. So thank you for bringing that forward and helping us improve.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's been a theme just over the last, since I've been on the board, probably 4 or so, but just getting consistency across the board, whether it's curriculum, whether it's IEP, the compliancy, so that students, teachers, parents, the administration, everybody knows what to expect and there are no surprises. So thank you for all the work that you are all doing, because it's not easy. So thank you. Okay, so I will move on to 5B, teaching and learning and service update. That is Jake Misiak.
So during in-service, there were some additional trainings that took place. One of the biggest ones was our Wonders training. So as we had established during the pilot process, when we were talking about bringing in resources for teachers to use, one of the big themes that our teachers identified was making sure that there was ample professional front end, so they were fully aware of how to use that resource once they wanted to put it in front of kids. So our training was a 2-day training with the trainer that our staff had identified as the person they wanted to work with. Their first experience with her was last November, and she kind of turned our Wonders pilot around for us, and our pilot teachers absolutely loved working with her, and under her guidance, they gained a better understanding of how all the different components of Wonders fit together. So although it wasn't specific requirements of going with Wonders, she was a big deal that we worked to make sure that she was the one that was going to provide the training to our teachers because of how well our teachers responded to her knowledge of implementing the resource. We broke it up into grade level bands so that early elementary and upper elementary had separate times with her, so the group sizes were a little bit smaller so that we could target needs and be more responsive and answer their questions. The second day of training, they worked with Sue again during the Wonders portion of it, but we paired that against time for grade level teams to work with both our reading specialists and our pilot teachers to understand how the resource works. So we were building some teacher leadership in respects to that because the pilot teachers who were in the room, they were able to talk about their experience with Wonders, the things that they did that successfully led to student outcomes in the classroom and answer their colleagues' questions. So again, I will thank the pilot teachers again for the work that they're continuing to do to make sure that Wonders is successful in our classrooms. The other thing that we did is at the secondary level, there was training for StudySync. So just like Wonders, we wanted to make sure that our teachers understood how to use StudySync. The training for StudySync was a little less intense than the training for Wonders. There's fewer components at the middle school level in terms of how it's used. So the training took place on a shorter time frame. But then the other piece of that was there was time for our departments to work vertically. So one of the things that Chris and I have heard from our teachers along the way was that on professional development days, there hasn't been enough time for us to work across schools, so KMS and GHS working together to understand the vertical progression of standards and learning outcomes. So myself, the Curriculum Assessment and Instructional Service Coordinator, Ms. Alejandra Abayi-Krolik, as well as the administration from Kennedy Middle School and GHS, each took one of the departments and led the departments through kind of a process of, one, how are we going to collaborate as a 6-12 team, and in some cases for art, music, and physical education, K-12 teams, and then identify from teachers and listening to their voice, what are some of the priorities that they're looking for in terms of curricular focuses, and prioritize when we have departments that are not in a year of review. So some of the continuous improvement of curriculum and instruction that we can do on the professional development days. And that took place on the Wednesday of our in-service.
Thank you, Jake. I'm looking forward to seeing how Wonders and the success of Wonders and Sync go throughout this school year. So glad the teachers are excited about it. It's the first step.
Yeah, the first day of Wonders in classrooms was Thursday, so there was Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Wonders was up and running in classrooms on Thursday, and our goal was to make sure that our teachers felt ready to dive into it that quickly with students so that they could get into the resource. And then we've strategically planned throughout all of our professional development days additional touch points with our trainers so that we can continue to be responsive to teachers' needs and extend their understanding of the resource and how it works.
There's an avenue that teachers can take if there's something that comes up in the interim.
Yeah, there's a few steps. So there's reading specialists in all of the buildings that are very responsive to teachers' questions. But on top of that, we have that internal resource that we built during the pilot. So our pilot teachers have been a valuable source of information for our teachers who are using it for the first time. So they're great at answering questions. But then again, on top of that, we have the trainer from McGraw-Hill who will consistently come back and support our teachers.
I was talking to Ms. Chandelia, our Amy Bell principal, and she had held a meeting last week with her teachers regarding the first few days of Wonders and questions they had and highlights. And when teachers who weren't in a pilot had questions, she shared that teachers that were pilot teachers jumped in, even at different grade levels, but understanding, the totality of programming. And yep, though the content is different at maybe second grade than fifth grade, here's how I tackled that last year. Here's what worked and didn't. So it's great how Jake, the reading specialist, and those pilot teachers have built internal collaboration and connectivity, as the first year is always hard, no matter at anything in life, right? So the ability to lean on each other and learn from each other.
Right, well, and a huge thank you to the teachers that learned one pilot and then had to switch over to a whole new one. That's two
That's a lot.
programs in a
Yeah.
year, so, yeah, thank you for all the hard work. Appreciate it. Russ?
Yeah, I want to, I guess, take some time to acknowledge some of what you were just discussing. For as long as the pilot process took and the research process took, obviously there's a lot of reasons that went into it, and I think it got us into the best spot possible to move forward the program. This year is going to be twice that work, implementing it across district-wide. But a lot of the work that was done during the pilot time we were able to highlight members, like you just discussed, that work well with our teachers and are able to provide that training in a manner that they're able to take it in and reapply it within their rooms. So I appreciate all aspects of that. I appreciate the extra hard work that's going in this year to get this off the ground and running in the district. So thank you for your team and the staff.
We will move on to unfinished business. We have none. Item 7, we have new business. That is World Language Resource Pilot, and back to Jake for this.
So this is a much smaller scale pilot than we embarked in last year. The World Language team had actually started their review the very first year that I was here, and we had paused it last year for several reasons. One of the reasons being we had some members of our team who weren't available for the entire duration of the review, so to meet our teachers' needs, it was a good time to pause that review process, but we're picking it up again. And this year, the teachers would like to take a look at a resource that they have used previously. So this is a material that has not served as their primary resource. It's actually a supplementary resource that they have used, but would like to see if they can use it as a primary resource for helping students understand the grade level standards. So the product that they're looking at actually comes in 4 separate levels. So there's SOMOS 1 and 2, and then there's WALIS 1 and 2. And then that would serve our students who are taking Spanish 1, including Spanish 1 at the middle school, and Spanish 1 at the high school, all the way through Spanish 4. What they're looking for this year when they're evaluating that resource is how well does this resource align to CAP outcomes, because essentially that's where we're driving our students in their Spanish understanding. So how well does it align to CAP? But then in addition to that, how well does it build students' ability to use the Spanish language? So the teachers have used this resource before. For example, SOMOS, there's 22 units. They've already used 10 of them. So they have been in classrooms. They have been something that we've used previously, but they're looking to extend and look at all of those units. They had purchased segments of this resource, but not the whole package. So that's really where we're at, is we're looking at purchasing the complete package this year to take a look at it, and then from that standpoint, evaluate it against standards similar to what we did in the reading pilot to make sure that it's meeting the expectations that we established back in year 1 when we said, here's the Wisconsin State World Language Standards, here are the outcomes that we're looking for. How well does this resource support our students in developing that understanding?
I looked a little bit into it, and it says that it's aligned with national standards, which is nice, so it's not just on a, Wisconsin state level where it kind of goes larger than that, so that's, I think, a benefit to students.
Yeah, the way in which the World Language Standards work, the national standards are called ACTFL standards for World Language Acquisition. The Wisconsin State Standards are built similar to those, so there is some similarity between the two. So in meeting those standards, we're also driving towards the Wisconsin State Standards.
And it also looks like the lessons plans, they're able to, students that are doing well and versus students that might be struggling, that it does give a little adaptation for those students to be able to catch up and learn. It's not just one curriculum, either you get it or you don't.
Correct. And then the other piece that we're looking for here is, as you had mentioned at the very beginning of all this, when you were talking about the great work that Katie did with her team, was the building consistency part. This resource is one of the things that would allow us to start building that level of consistency within world languages and specifically Spanish, because they've had a resource before, but that resource clearly didn't meet their needs, and that was one of the reasons why they were looking for these supplementary materials to try and to get students where they needed to get them. So the biggest benefit to the structure of this is it does have lessons that are pretty well laid out that can lead to that level of consistency that we're looking for, so that if a student is taking Spanish 1 at the middle school, and they do that over the course of 2 years, that they can be ready for Spanish 2 at the high school, because ultimately that's what's going to get them to CAP within the time frame when they're at GHS. And if students take CAP, that's a huge financial benefit to students and families, because they can earn a lot of college credits, and with that, any student who's going to their first year of college holding credits, there's big benefits to them, because they get to register early for classes. It saves them and their parents potentially thousands and thousands of dollars. So that there's a lot of benefits on the student end for getting to our CAP courses.
And then the other thing I'm looking into it is the lifetime access. So you're buying the resource, but then the updates and everything is already taken care of. We're not looking
Right,
for
and
changes.
so again, contrasting this with the reading pilot, this is a resource that's very cost-effective for us in terms of what it would take to bring it here to Germantown.
Do we see, and you mentioned it a little bit, this building out consistency from classroom to classroom? I know there's some concerns within the community of that right now.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece, right? So when we have an understanding of the outcomes that we're looking for that are associated with standards, that's where we start. Consistency across all of our teachers to say, in Spanish 1, this is what the outcome is. There has to be that level of consistency. This resource then builds those steps to get to that level of consistency. So what our teachers will do when they work through this pilot, similar to the reading pilot, they're going to take a look at how well do these resources align to the outcomes that we're looking for. What was nice about reading is we had an external measure for that. We can kind of backwards design what we're looking for in terms of outcomes from CAP. So we can say, even though not all of our students have to take that many years of Spanish, what would it look like to make sure that we're preparing our kids in Spanish 1 so that final step of CAP could be available to them if they wanted to pursue it. And again, the idea is, regardless of who you have the ability to have access to that resource, and we have the same grade level expectations across all Spanish 1. And the biggest one, like I said before, is that transition from middle school to high school. When students take Spanish 1 in 7th and 8th grade at the middle school, that should prepare them to take Spanish 2 as a freshman at the high school level. So across buildings, GHS Spanish 1 should look like KMS over those 2 years.
Well, and then you have the familiarity between the teachers that have already used it, so not trying to learn a whole new resource, and then also
Yeah.
for students.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate the vertical alignment side of it. I think even more so we have within the same building, from classroom to classroom alignment issues, where depending on which staff member you get as a teacher, your outcomes at the end of the year could be different based off of how the instruction is happening in those rooms. And that's a concern I guess I have as a board member.
And that's the
This would be a step, though, to helping remedy that.
correct. So that's when you take a look at the curriculum review process. That's the heart of it. As we start with talking about the standards and what are the outcomes that we're looking for students, and then we're driving all of the work that we do to get to that spot, because we owe it to our kids to make sure that when they sign up for Spanish 1, that they're getting the outcome across regardless of who is the instructor. Same thing for reading, why it was so important for us to have that universal resource for our teachers to use. It creates consistency across the buildings. And one of the things that our trainer did at the very beginning for the reading piece was to talk to them about what are you most excited for. And by far the most common answer, and I think it showed up universally across everybody's answers, was we're very excited to have a common resource that we can collaborate with our colleagues. And then having something like this, if it is as well constructed as we believe it is, because they've used a significant portion of it, this is going to provide them that same access. They're going to have a universal resource that they can use across Spanish 1 to support students.
And I think you highlighted it already, but I just want to clarify it. This was staff-driven,
Yep.
ground up. This wasn't handed down. This was handed up,
Correct.
which is important.
This is the recommendation of the 612 Spanish team as part of the world language. Again, as part of being a smaller review, one of the nice things that we had with the Spanish review is universal participation. So all of our teachers who teach Spanish, we kind of constructed the review to make sure that all of their voices could be a part of this.
Sure.
Because just like reading, there has to be that piece where the teachers believe in the resource that
Absolutely.
they're using. And the likelihood that that resource is going to be used to its fullest potential is going to be maximized when this is the selection of the teachers. The key step there, and they're on board with this piece, is making sure that it's aligned to the outcomes that we're looking for. So regardless of how much they love something, that's a critical piece that has to be there, that it has to be aligned to the outcomes we're looking for.
And then this is, I mean, we're talking mostly Spanish here for this, correct?
It's only Spanish.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. The paragraph that starts with the words, the current prices to purchase the resources, SOMOS, and however you pronounce that word, what are the numbers there? It says SOMOS 1-400. What is 400?
$400. So to purchase that one license of it, it would cost $400.
And is that for one student, one class?
That is for one teacher to own that license.
Okay.
So then the price is dependent kind of per year. To outfit every single one of our Spanish teachers with the entire suite of these materials would be right around $5,000 total. But not all of our teachers teach Spanish 1. So that's
So you can,
the number of students in each one of those decreases in time. So the vast majority of the largest population of kids we have is at the Spanish 1 level, and then it kind of decreases with time, where fewer and fewer students are enrolled in those Spanish courses. So we might move from something like 6 or 7 sections of Spanish 1 down to maybe 2 sections of Spanish 4, or 2 or 3 sections of Spanish 4.
Okay.
that's yearly cost?
That's a one-time cost, that's all we pay for it. As Kim mentioned, or Ms. Higginbotham mentioned, they'll give us the updates along with it. You don't have to purchase it again.
Okay. And we can add if we have a new teacher, that we
Correct.
would
Yep.
be a 400, 200, 240, whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mike, for asking that.
Yeah, the units of dollars
Sorry.
and dollars per teacher wasn't in the material, so you can imagine how I or others might be confused.
He did spell out cap, though.
Any other discussion? All right, with that, I will take a motion.
Before, I'm prepared to make the motion, but I just want to verify whether or not we should include the total cost that's been listed here in the motion that we sent out to the board or not.
Normally, it would be in there. I'm assuming because it's such a low dollar cost that it wasn't, and it's not going to go to finance. Is it just as simple as adding those numbers up, or it would be drastically different?
Yeah, it's 1,056 that's listed, so.
Is it?
If we purchased it so that you could do a not to exceed, because that would be that we can purchase each one of the teachers who teaches the level exactly what they need. exceed $5,280. That would be the max amount to purchase every teacher a license for each one of those.
Make it not to exceed 6,000 if we decide to provide an additional license. Would that afford you some room? I don't think it'll break the budget, right, Brittany? She's shaking her head no, for the record.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to provide a positive recommendation to the full board to approve the piloting of Somos 1 and 2 and Wayla's 1 and 2 not to exceed $6,000 during the 2024-2025 school year.
Second.
So I have a motion by Tracy with a second by Russ. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? With that, the motion carries. And I will entertain one more motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion by Russ, a second by Tracy to adjourn. This Teaching and Learning Committee meeting is over as of 6:07.
Gotta vote. Gotta vote.
Good night.
Gotta vote.
Oh, all right, I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, that motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:07.